She should have been the happiest woman in the world that day. But Amora Nwosu's wedding began like a dream and ended like a funeral. The rain had started hours before the ceremony, pouring over the glass roof of St. Andrew's Cathedral in Abuja. Guests whispered it was bad luck, but Amora didn't care. She smiled as she walked down the aisle in her white lace gown, her veil trembling in the wind. Her groom, Chuka, stood waiting, tall, kind, and nervous. He had promised her forever. The choir began to sing softly. Every camera flashed. Every eye watched her. But as the priest lifted his hands to bless them, something changed. Chuka blinked, swayed a little, and touched his face. A drop of blood slid from his nose. Then another. Then he gasped. The church fell silent. Chuka. Amora whispered, her bouquet falling from her hands. He tried to speak, but blood spilled down his chin. And before anyone could move, he collapsed. Screams echoed through the church. The choir stopped singing. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming like a heartbeat. Amora froze. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She just stood there, staring at her husband's lifeless body on the marble floor. Then someone in the crowd whispered, "It's happening again." The word sliced through her like a blade. Because this wasn't the first time. This was her third wedding. And every man she ever married, every man who ever said "I do" to her, had died within days. As paramedics rushed in, Amora slowly turned toward the altar. Her makeup had melted from tears, her eyes hollow with disbelief. "Why me?" she whispered to no one. "What kind of woman buries love 3 times?" Her fingers trembled as she picked up the wedding ring that had rolled across the floor. She held it against her chest and whispered, "Mama, you said this day would come, but I didn't believe you." The thunder cracked outside as if the heavens themselves were mourning in Abuja. She was called the Black Widow. But in her village, they called her something worse. The woman of the blood oath. They say time heals everything. But for Amora Nwosu, time only repeated her nightmares. 2 weeks after her wedding, Abuja had forgotten the tragedy. But her name still echoed on every gossip blog, every whispered conversation in the salons, the streets, and the offices. "She's cursed. Did you hear? Third husband. Maybe she killed them herself." Every time her phone buzzed, it wasn't love calling, it was hate. Amora locked herself inside her apartment at Metoma Heights, curtains drawn. The city outside sparkled with life, cars honking, children laughing, weddings happening every weekend. But inside her home, silence had a heartbeat. Her eyes were red from crying. Every photo frame on the wall held a ghost, 3 smiling men, 3 promises, 3 graves. On the dining table sat her wedding bouquet, now brown and withered. She had kept it because she couldn't bury one more thing she loved. She spent her night scrolling through old videos, each one ending the same way. With laughter turning into screaming. She wasn't born cursed. She was born loved. But love, in her family, always came with blood. One night, unable to sleep, Amora drove through the empty streets of Abuja until she reached a cemetery. There, under the rain, she knelt before 3 graves. Her voice trembled. "Chuka, Emeka, Daniel. I swear I never wanted this. I swear I didn't." In that flash, she saw something that froze her blood. A woman's shadow standing behind her. When she turned, no one was there. Only the soft whisper of the wind through the graves. Then she heard it, a faint voice, calling her name in the distance. "Amora." She spun around. No one. But she recognized that voice. Her mother. Mama. Her lips trembled. Her mother had died 5 years ago. She ran back to her car, shaking, breath heavy. But when she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw something written on the fogged glass behind her headrest. In a woman's handwriting, drawn with invisible fingers. "Go home, Amora." At that moment, she knew. Her mother had tried to protect her from something far older than love. Something buried deep in the soil of their past. Amora pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and whispered, "Mama, what did you do?" Before Abuja's city lights. Before the name Amora ever carried sorrow. There was a girl named Adiz, Amora's grandmother. And it all began with her love. Umuoloka was a quiet village wrapped in red earth and superstition. People there believed that every promise carried a spirit. If you broke a vow, the spirit would find you. Adiz was only 19 when she fell in love with a man named Obina, a trader from a rival clan, the Noji family. Their love was forbidden, but fire doesn't ask permission to burn. They met in secret near the river every moonlight, speaking in whispers, laughing like the world didn't matter. But Obina was weak. When his family arranged the marriage for him with another woman, he agreed, leaving Adiz behind with nothing but shame and a secret. She was carrying his child. Her heart broke, not just from love lost, but from humiliation. The village women mocked her, calling her the girl who trusted a liar. One night, unable to bear it anymore, Adiz walked to the old Ola shrine, the sacred ground no one dared to enter. There, she met a priestess known only as Mama Nwani, a woman with eyes like smoke and a voice that sounded older than time. "Why have you come here, child?" Adiz fell to her knees, her tears mixing with the red dust. "He betrayed me. He promised me forever, but left me to die with his shame." The priestess studied her in silence, then handed her a small clay bowl filled with dark liquid. "Swear your heart upon your blood. If you drink, your pain will be avenged. Every woman born of your blood will never be abandoned again. For if a man dares love and live, death will claim him first." Adiz hesitated, trembling. "And if I break this vow, then love itself will break you." Lightning cracked through the night sky. Adiz looked up at the heavens and drank. The ground shook beneath her feet. She screamed as blood trickled from her eyes, her palms, her lips. When she woke, the priestess was gone. But a serpent coiled near her hand, watching. It hissed once, then slithered into the forest. From that day, the curse began. Every daughter born from Adiz's line would inherit that oath. Every man who loved them would bleed when love turned fragile. Years later, Adiz's daughter, Amora's mother, would flee the village to escape the whispers. But she couldn't escape the blood. Because curses don't need your permission to follow you. For months, Amora lived in silence. Her apartment became her ward, curtains closed, doors locked. And only the sound of her own breathing to remind her she was alive. But fate doesn't always knock politely. Sometimes, it breaks the door with a question. It was a Tuesday morning when Ton Adebayo appeared at her gate. A journalist, tall, calm, with eyes that carried both curiosity and kindness. He held a recorder, a notebook, and a quiet smile. "Mrs. Nwosu." She didn't answer. "My name is Ton. I write for the Abuja Daily. I want to tell your story." Amora almost laughed. Her story. It had already been told, twisted, poisoned, and published 100 times. "You people think I'm some kind of witch," she said, her voice breaking. "What more do you want to write?" Another headline. Ton didn't flinch. He simply said, "No. I think you're human. And I think humans deserve to be understood." For the first time in years, someone looked at her and didn't see a curse. He saw a woman who was tired of being hated for surviving. Days turned into weeks. He kept visiting, not to interview, but to listen. Sometimes, they sat in silence. Sometimes, they laughed. He brought her books, coffee, and peace. But peace is fragile when built on broken ground. One evening, as the sun painted Abuja gold, Amora caught herself smiling again. It felt foreign, dangerous. "Ton," she whispered, "you shouldn't be here. Everyone who loves me dies." He chuckled softly. "Then maybe I'll just stay your friend." She smiled, a real one this time. That's what the last one said. But something about Ton was different. He wasn't chasing her tragedy, he was chasing her truth. And Amora, despite her fear, began to hope that maybe, just maybe, the curse had finally run out of tears. That night, she dreamed again. She was back in her village, standing at the river where her grandmother had once sworn the blood oath. The water turned red, and from its depths, a whisper rose. You cannot love without blood. She woke up shaking, gasping for air. Her phone buzzed, a message from Tond. Good morning, Amora. I made breakfast. Can I bring it over? She smiled weakly, wiped her tears, and replied. Yes. But please, don't fall in love with me. Love doesn't ask permission. Sometimes, it just walks in, and refuses to leave. Amora and Tond had become inseparable. What started as interviews had turned into late-night conversations, laughter in the kitchen, and quiet moments that made life feel safe again. He never asked her to forget. He just made remembering a little less painful. One evening, as the orange glow of sunset filled the room, Tond looked at her and said softly, Amora, I think I'm in love with you. Her hands froze on the teacup she was holding. The air went still. Don't, she whispered. Don't say that. Why? He asked, smiling gently. Because words have power, she said. And mine kill. But love is stubborn. And Tond's heart was louder than her fear. He moved closer, took her trembling hands in his. Then let your curse meet my fate. That was the night they kissed, softly, desperately, like people who knew time was a thief. For the first time in years, Amora felt alive again. They cooked together, laughed again, even danced barefoot in the living room when the lights went out. For a while, she believed maybe the curse was gone. Maybe love had finally won. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And every sunrise without tragedy felt like a miracle. Until one morning, Tond woke up coughing. At first, it was nothing, just a little tickle in the throat. Then blood. A small red stain on the white bedsheet. Amora froze. The world spun. Tond, she whispered. It's happening again. He tried to smile through the pain. Maybe it's just malaria. But deep down, she knew. The curse had found her again. She rushed to the bathroom, washing her hands violently, as if she could scrub away destiny. Her reflection in the mirror blurred through tears. Why can't love ever stay? She cried. She looked at Tond lying on the bed, pale, weak, still trying to comfort her. And that was when something inside her broke, not from fear, but from guilt. I can't lose you, she whispered. Not again. So that night, she packed a small bag, took his car keys, and left. Not to run, but to find answers. Because if her love was killing him, then only the truth from her past could save him. Mama, if you can hear me, she said, I'm coming home. The road to Umoloka felt longer than it ever had. Maybe because every kilometer was pulling her closer to the truth she'd spent her life running from. The rain was heavy that night. The headlights of Tond's car carved through the mist like trembling candles. Amora's hands gripped the steering wheel, but her mind was somewhere else. In her mother's voice, in the whispers of the village women, and in the sound of drums that used to echo from the shrine on cold nights. When she finally arrived, the village was quiet, too quiet. Even the crickets seemed to be holding their breath. She parked the car beside the old well and stepped out. The earth smelled of wet clay and memories. An old woman sat by a fire under the tree, her eyes glowing faintly like embers in the dark. It was Mama Ebo, the oldest woman in the village. The one people whispered could see both worlds, the living and the dead. Amora, the woman said without turning. I knew you would come. Amora froze. You, remember me? How could I forget? Mama Ebo murmured. You carry her eyes, and her curse. Amora's throat tightened. Please. I need to know. Why does everyone I love die? Why does my blood destroy everything it touches? Mama Ebo lifted her gaze, the fire reflected in her pupils. You are not cursed for what you did, child, she said. You are cursed for what was done for you. What do you mean? Your mother took a blood oath with a dying spirit, the woman whispered. To save your life. Mama Ebo continued. You were born still, your heart had stopped before the midwife could even cry out. Your mother ran barefoot through the rain, straight to the shrine of Ani, the earth goddess. She cut her own palm and said, Take my blood, but give her breath. The goddess agreed, but with a price. Every man who tries to build love upon her life shall pay the blood that was borrowed. Amora's tears fell like the rain outside. So every man who loved me was just paying my debt. Yes, Mama Ebo said softly. Love is the currency. Blood is the interest. Amora dropped to her knees. Then I can't love anyone. Not until the oath is broken, the woman replied. And that will require another sacrifice. What kind? The same kind your mother made, a willing one. The words hit like thunder. Amora's breath caught. You mean? I have to die? Or someone has to love you enough to take your place? Amora's phone buzzed in her pocket, Ton's name flashing on the screen. Her shaking fingers rejected the call. She wasn't ready to hear his voice, not now. She looked into the flames and whispered. Mama, what have you done to me? Amora sat under the same tree until the fire died. The words of Mama Ebo echoed like thunder in her mind. Someone must love you enough to take your place. Her heart ached for Ton. He didn't deserve this. He was kind, pure, and stubborn enough to love her through her fears. She picked up her phone, hands shaking. A message from him glowed on the screen. I'm scared, but I miss you. Come home. Tears slipped down her cheeks. No, she whispered. If I go back, he'll die. She looked up at the dark sky. Ani, goddess of the earth, if love is the price, let mine be enough. Amora walked toward the shrine deep in the forest. She knelt before the ancient stone and sliced her palm. Just as her mother once did. End this, she cried. Take my blood, not his. The wind roared. The candles around her flickered and went out. Then silence. Somewhere in Abuja, Ton woke up gasping. The pain in his chest suddenly gone. Amora's final whisper carried through the wind. Tell him, love doesn't kill. It saves. Ton woke up to sunlight streaming through the curtains. For the first time in weeks, there was no pain. No blood. No weakness. Just peace. He sat up slowly, confused. On the bedside table was Amora's necklace, the one she never took off. A single note lay beside it, written in her shaky handwriting. Love didn't kill you, Ton. It freed you. His chest tightened. Tears blurred his vision as he whispered her name. Amora. He searched everywhere, her apartment, her favorite cafe, the art gallery where they first met. No one had seen her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Until 1 week later, a call came from Umoloka. A woman's voice said gently, We found her scarf by the shrine. Tell the young man she's resting now. Ton drove there the same night. He stood before the ancient shrine, his heart pounding, eyes full of tears. He placed her necklace on the stone and whispered, You gave me life, Amora. I leave it for both of us. Tell him, love doesn't kill. It saves. Ton looked up at the sky, smiling through tears. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of love anymore. Because she had turned her curse into salvation. Weeks passed. Ton tried to move on, but every night, he dreamed of her. In his sleep, he saw Amora standing in the same forest, smiling softly, whispering words he couldn't hear. One evening, he returned to Umoloka again. Mama Ebo was waiting by the fire, just as before. You kept your promise, she said quietly. I came to understand, Ton replied. Why her? Why this curse? The old woman sighed. The curse was never about death, she said. It was about protection. Ton frowned. Protection. When Amora's mother made that oath, Mama Ebo continued, the goddess didn't mean to punish her bloodline. She meant to guard it. Every man who loved Amora was tested. Only one whose heart was pure enough to give without wanting would survive. You were that man, Ton. Ton's eyes widened. Then why did she have to die? She didn't die, Mama Ebo said, voice trembling. She became the oath. Her spirit binds the blessing now, not the curse. The wind stirred the fire. Ton looked toward the shrine. For a brief moment, he saw her, standing in the glow, serene, free, watching him. Amora, he whispered. Her voice echoed faintly. Live well, that's how you keep me alive. Ton fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face, realizing the truth. Love had never been his punishment. It had been his salvation. A year passed. Abuja was different now, quieter. Ton had left the noise behind and opened a small art studio on the city's edge. On one wall hung a single painting, Amora, standing beneath a storm, holding out her hand as if catching light from the sky. He called it the Oath. People often asked, who is she? Ton always smiled softly and said, someone who taught me what love really means. Every year, on the day she died, or rather, became one with the Oath, he drove back to Umuoloka, placed white lilies at the shrine, and whispered the same words. You saved me, Amora. And I'm still living, for us. The wind always stirred when he said it. As if the earth itself was answering back. This time, he heard her voice one last time. Soft, warm, eternal. Then the oath has ended. You've kept your promise. Ton smiled through tears. For the first time in his life, he felt no pain. No fear. Just quiet gratitude. Love had taken everything from him. But also given him everything he truly needed. And as the sun rose over the hills of Umuoloka, the blood oath that once destroyed now became a story. One of redemption, sacrifice, and love that refused to die. Sometimes, curses aren't meant to destroy us. They are meant to teach us the kind of love that saves. What would you have done if the person you loved was cursed to destroy everyone they cared for? Would you stay, or would you walk away to save them? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I read every story you share. And if this one touched your heart, subscribe for more stories that stay with you long after they end. This is Mira Stories.